Welcome back to Starz Recapped. Today, we're traveling 65 million years into the past with the 2023 sci-fi thriller 65. What begins as a routine space mission turns into a nightmare when a spacecraft crashes on a mysterious planet, Earth, long before humans ever existed. Surrounded by deadly prehistoric creatures and racing against extinction itself, survival becomes the only mission left. Let's break down this intense fight against time, nature, and dinosaurs. The story begins on a distant world known as Starz, where a young girl named Naveen stands by the shore, practicing the art of hand whistling. Watching her with quiet pride are her parents, Mills and Alia. Beneath this peaceful moment lies an unspoken truth. Mills is preparing to leave on a dangerous 2-year space mission, something he hasn't yet brought himself to tell his daughter. The reason behind his decision soon becomes clear. Naveen is suffering from a serious illness, and the mission's reward is the only way Mills can afford her treatment. One day, he sits with Naveen and gently teaches her how to whistle. During their time together, she reveals that she already knows he's going to leave again and believes it's because of her condition. Mills reassures her, promising that this separation won't be forever. The family cherishes every moment they have left, creating memories that Mills will soon carry with him into space. Sometime later, Mills is seen piloting a spacecraft, while the rest of the crew remains in cryogenic sleep. The journey appears routine until disaster strikes. Without warning, the ship is pulled into a deadly asteroid field. Alarms blare as debris slams into the vessel, tearing through critical systems. Despite Mills' desperate attempts to regain control, the damage is beyond repair. Left with no alternatives, Mills initiates an emergency landing on an unknown planet. The spacecraft breaks apart during descent, and as it crashes toward the surface, memories of his daughter flood his mind before everything fades to black. When Mills regains consciousness, he finds himself badly injured. Fighting through the pain, he removes a shard of metal from his body and treats his wounds. After suiting up, he inspects the wreckage, only to discover something horrifying. The cryopods are gone. Stepping outside, his fear becomes reality as he finds the lifeless bodies of his entire crew scattered across the crash site. Mills sends out a distress signal and removes his helmet, realizing the planet's air is somehow breathable. Overwhelmed by grief and guilt, he nearly gives up on life entirely. But just as he reaches his breaking point, he watches recorded messages from his daughter, moments filled with laughter and love, which bring him back from the edge. Suddenly, a signal appears on his scanner. A survivor pod is still active. Mills rushes toward the signal and finds a cryogenic capsule containing a young girl who is miraculously alive. He pulls her free and carries her back toward the wreckage. Along the way, he notices something unsettling: a massive footprint pressed deep into the ground. The truth soon becomes clear. The planet is Earth, but not the Earth we know. The story is set 65 million years in the past, during the age of dinosaurs. The following day, Mills attempts to locate the remaining half of the ship, which contains the escape pod. His scanner struggles, but a distant flash of light reveals its location, high up in the mountains. As he moves through the terrain, he encounters the fossilized remains of enormous creatures. Its remains sprawled across the mouth of a geyser, apparently caught in a fatal burst of scorching water. It's a grim reminder of how unforgiving this world can be. Pressing onward, a brief glimmer flashes in the distance, catching his attention. Mills raises his scanner once more and finally pieces it together. The missing half of the spacecraft isn't nearby at all. It's stranded far away, high among the towering mountains, and barely survives a sudden attack by a predatory dinosaur. While returning to the crash site, Mills hears movement in the forest. It's the girl he rescued. Startled, she runs, and the chase ends with both of them tumbling down a slope near the remains of a dead dinosaur. Before they can recover, a massive predator approaches, forcing them to flee. Back at the ship, Mills treats the girl's injuries and tries to communicate with her, but she speaks an unfamiliar language. Checking the passenger records, he learns her name is Koa, which she confirms. Through drawings, Mills explains that their only way home is to reach the escape pod in the mountains. Koa responds with a drawing of her own, asking about her parents. Mills gently tells her they are there too, and teaches her a new word that will define their journey ahead: family. Not long after, Mills records another emergency transmission, this time revealing that he has located a living child and is in urgent need of rescue. While he's away, Koa wanders into another section of the damaged ship and discovers a collection of personal video logs. Curious, she begins watching them. The recordings are messages from Naveen, sent to her father during his long journey. From these clips, it's revealed that Mills had already completed his mission and was on his way back home after 2 years in space when the crash occurred. At first, the videos are filled with smiles and optimism, but as they continue, Naveen's condition worsens, and her pain from being separated from her father becomes painfully clear. Before Koa can watch anymore, Mills enters the room and quickly shuts the footage off. Without saying much, he urges her to move on. Preparing for the journey ahead, Mills gathers several small explosive devices, and together they set off through a dense forest, crawling with hidden dangers. As they travel, Koa notices a strange glow streaking across the sky, but she doesn't understand its significance and soon forgets about it. The tension briefly eases when Koa spots some berries and begins playfully tossing them at Mills. Curious, he scans one and immediately realizes they are toxic. He firmly warns her never to touch them again, and despite the language barrier, Koa understands the seriousness of his tone. As they continue, they come across a young dinosaur trapped in thick mud. Ignoring Mills' warnings, Koa rushes forward to help. Reluctantly, Mills follows, and together they manage to free the frightened creature. For a moment, it seems like a small victory, until a group of predators suddenly appears and brutally attacks the helpless animal. The violent scene leaves Koa shaken and in tears. Mills quickly pulls her away and hides behind a fallen tree, keeping her quiet until the predators finally move on. Once the danger passes, they resume their journey and eventually reach a flowing stream. With their water supply depleted, Mills asks Koa to refill the container from the river, reassuring her that it's safe to drink. As she kneels by the water, Mills watches her silently, reminded of his own daughter and the life he desperately hopes to return to. After collecting the water, Koa returns with a small flower and shyly tries to place it in Mills' hair. He immediately resists, clearly uncomfortable. But when he notices her disappointed expression, he gives in and allows her to tuck the flower behind his ear, sharing a quiet, human moment amid the danger. They continue moving forward, but Mills soon realizes he has lost track of the remaining section of the crashed ship. To get a better view, he climbs a tall tree and successfully spots the wreckage in the distance. However, his relief is short-lived. A swarm of insects suddenly crawls across his hand, startling him. As he struggles to shake them off, he loses his footing and crashes to the ground, badly dislocating his shoulder. Gritting through the pain, Mills drags himself back to the tree, only to notice several hostile dinosaurs approaching. With no time to waste, he asks Koa to step on his injured arm. The pain is unbearable, but the maneuver forces his shoulder back into place. He immediately opens fire, holding the creatures off as long as he can. Realizing he's outnumbered, he orders Koa to run. Koa hides behind a fallen log, while Mills uses explosives to slow the attackers. As the gunfire echoes through the forest, Koa realizes more predators are closing in on her position. She tries to flee, but they chase her relentlessly. Just when escape seems impossible, Mills arrives and eliminates the threat. One creature, however, survives long enough to snatch Koa and drag her into the trees. Mills gives chase, firing a shot that scares the dinosaur away and frees her at the last second. The terrifying ordeal leaves Koa deeply shaken. Unable to speak her language, Mills stays close, offering comfort simply by being there. As night falls, he shows her how to whistle, using her hands, just as he once taught his own daughter. The familiar gesture brings a sense of calm as they continue walking, and eventually find a cave to shelter in for the night. Inside, Mills sets up motion sensors around the cave entrance and checks his navigation system. What he discovers is far worse than expected. The asteroid that caused the crash was only the beginning. An enormous planet-destroying asteroid is now on a direct collision course with Earth. Before the weight of this realization fully sinks in, Koa distracts him by revealing a data disk she secretly took from the ship, containing messages from Naveen. Mills reacts angrily, scolding her for taking it without permission, which upsets her deeply. After cooling down, he activates the recording, and together they watch Naveen's holographic messages, finding brief comfort in her presence. Later, as Mills tries to sleep, memories overwhelm him. He recalls the moment Alia contacted him to tell him that Naveen had passed away in the hospital. The pain resurfaces, and he breaks down silently. Suddenly, the motion sensors activate. Mills rushes to Koa and notices foam forming around her mouth. Panicked, he opens her mouth and finds an insect lodged inside, quickly removing it before it can do more harm. But the danger escalates when a massive dinosaur appears at the cave entrance. Mills fires a shot, injuring its eye, which sends the enraged creature crashing into the cave walls. With no other choice, Mills and Koa retreat deeper into the cave, where the massive predator can't follow. Using his scanner, Mills searches for another exit, but instead discovers the cave is infested with smaller, aggressive creatures. They flee once more, running until they reach a dead end. Exhausted and desperate, Mills attempts to dig through the rock to create an escape route, but the stone barely moves. Hours pass with no success. Still, Koa refuses to give up. Driven by hope, she continues digging, determined to reach her family. Watching her struggle, Mills finally admits the truth, that he lied, and her parents are not waiting in the mountains. Koa, unable to understand his words, keeps digging anyway. The moment fills Mills with guilt, knowing her hope is built on a promise he couldn't keep. Refusing to give up, Mills comes up with a new plan. Using his remaining explosives, he carefully blasts the rock wall, slowly widening the block tunnel. This time it works. Before moving ahead, he hands Koa a few small charges, signaling that she should use them only if they're separated. They squeeze into the narrow passage and crawl forward, but the earlier explosion weakens the cave structure. Without warning, the ceiling begins to crumble. Rocks crash down, cutting them off from each other in chaos. Mills panics, fearing the worst, but his fear fades when he hears a familiar whistling sound echoing through the darkness. Koa is alive, searching for another way out. Mills pushes onward. In the shadows, he encounters the massive dinosaur he injured earlier. With visibility near zero, he activates the proximity scanner on his device, revealing the creature lurking right behind him. A brutal struggle follows. The beast knocks his weapon away before he can fire and clamps down on his arm. Fighting through the pain, Mills manages to activate his scanner, which emits a piercing sound. The noise disorients the predator long enough for him to grab his gun and end the threat. Elsewhere, Koa wanders alone through the forest. She discovers a large bone and cleverly turns it into a weapon by coating it with poisonous berries and wrapping it in a broad leaf. She stores it in her pack and keeps moving, determined to survive. Mills eventually escapes the cave and looks up to see a brilliant object streaking across the sky. Scanning it, his device delivers terrifying news. A planet-ending asteroid is on a direct path toward Earth, and they have less than 12 hours to escape. He rushes to find Koa and soon hears her scream as a dinosaur closes in. Mills sprints toward the sound but slips into a swamp, sinking rapidly as the mud pulls him down. Meanwhile, Koa hides inside a hollow, dead tree, unaware that it becomes a trap for the pursuing dinosaur. Once the creature forces its way inside, she escapes, seals the opening, and tosses the explosives in after it. The blast eliminates the threat. Hearing Mills cry out, Koa races to him and finds him nearly swallowed by the swamp, with only his head above the surface. Thinking quickly, she pushes a fallen branch toward him, giving him something to grip. With her help, Mills pulls himself free. Overcome with relief, he embraces her and thanks her, then points to the blazing asteroid cutting across the sky. Time is running out, and they must move fast. They push forward through the darkness as night takes over the sky. Above them, the first fiery streaks begin to appear, early signs of the catastrophe to come. Eventually, they reach a towering cliff. Mills boosts Koa upward, allowing her to climb first and secure a rope around a massive rock. Once it's tied off, she tosses the line down, and Mills carefully makes his way up. At the top, they finally reach the lost section of the spacecraft. Mills rushes to inspect the escape pod system and confirms that it's still functional. Moments later, a signal comes through. A rescue ship has been dispatched. Relief washes over him, but Koa's hope quickly fades. She searches frantically through the wreckage, desperately looking for her parents. The cryogenic pods are destroyed, and there's no sign of survivors. Realizing the truth, she lashes out at Mills for deceiving her. At the same time, the sky ignites with countless meteors tearing through the atmosphere. Mills kneels beside her and finally opens up about his past. He explains that he accepted the dangerous mission to earn enough money to save his daughter. Despite everything, she didn't survive. The confession breaks him completely. Through tears, he promises that he won't abandon Koa and will do everything possible to get her home. Though she can't understand his words, she feels the pain behind them and wraps her arms around him. Suddenly, a meteor crashes into the nearby forest, followed by many more fragments raining down from a massive asteroid approaching the planet. Panic sets in. With time running out, they rush into the escape pod and prepare for launch. Before they can take off, two meteors slam into the wreckage, sending the pod tumbling down the mountainside. Mills is knocked unconscious in the chaos. When Koa tries to activate the launch sequence, the system warns her that takeoff is impossible from their current position. Mills regains consciousness just as a giant T-Rex emerges and begins attacking the pod. His weapon is outside, forcing him to unbuckle and dash into danger to retrieve it. He attempts to fire, but the gun malfunctions. As if things weren't bad enough, a second T-Rex appears and joins the assault. Taking cover behind twisted metal, Mills quickly reprograms the weapon. Before he can escape, the dinosaurs smash through his hiding place, leaving him injured and nearly helpless. In a desperate move, Koa activates Mills' device, projecting a hologram of Naveen, delivering a heartfelt message filled with love. Overcome with emotion, Mills watches as the two dinosaurs are momentarily distracted, mistaking the projection for a living presence. Seizing the opportunity, Koa bravely charges forward and plunges her makeshift weapon, coated with poisonous berries, into the dinosaur's eye. The wounded creature roars in agony. At that exact moment, a nearby geyser erupts, blasting scalding water upward and fatally burning the massive predator. With the danger finally behind them, Mills and Koa take a moment to catch their breath before climbing back into the escape pod. Without hesitation, the engines ignite, and the craft lifts off just in time. Moments later, the unimaginable happens. A colossal asteroid slams into Earth, triggering a planet-shaking explosion that reshapes the world and seals the fate of the dinosaurs forever. As their pod speeds toward the approaching rescue ship, Mills drifts in and out of consciousness. Pain and exhaustion overwhelm him, and memories of his daughter, her laughter, her voice, her final moments flood his mind. For a second, it feels like he might finally let go. But Koa reaches for his hand, grounding him in the present. Her silent support pulls him back, and together they break free from Earth's atmosphere, heading toward an uncertain future, but alive. The story closes with a sweeping view of Earth's transformation. From fire and destruction, the planet slowly cools, enters a frozen age, and eventually gives rise to new life. Millions of years later, humanity emerges, reminding us that even after total devastation, life finds a way to begin again. And that wraps up the complete story of this incredible survival journey. If you enjoyed this movie breakdown and want more exciting sci-fi and action movie recaps like this, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Starz Recapped. Your support helps the channel grow and keeps these stories coming. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next recap.